Hello and welcome to today's video. Today I'm starting a series on Harry Potter house colors. However, if you did not watch my previous video, I would suggest you do so. My feelings on J.K. Rowling are in there. The short version I'm willing to repeat is that I do not like that she is attacking trans and non-binary people. I will not support her financially, but I have decided for my own sanity that I can still meaningfully engage with the art if it does not enrich her. This is the same policy I use for every bad actor in the public sphere. I probably should have made clear in my other video that engaging with the art does not mean just continuing to enjoy it without introspection on my part and seeking new interpretations. I do my best to re-examine the art. So let's do that. Let's look at the houses of Harry Potter in light of this new information we have about J.K. I think it would be helpful to know that I am not a film student. I'm an anthropologist. And that is the lens through which I generally approach things. Also, I've only seen the first Fantastic Beasts movie because somebody did a lot of tweeting after that. And because I do not own it, I am not going to revisit it. In order to see it, I would have to put money in her pocket, and as I have explained, I will not be doing that. This is quite the lead up, I know, but one more thing before we get to the actual topic at hand. I think what I've done is just used footage of me doing my nails in the background. These are the colors I picked out for Slytherin. I do want to state explicitly, my opinions are my own and only mine. These brands have no idea what I'm about to say, and I'm going to actually do my best to shield them from this by not showing you the bottles or which polishes these are. What I think I will do is bury that in the description of the video so that if you're interested, you could go there to see. But that will at least put a step of extra effort between these brands and my opinions. Only 2 minutes of preamble. I'm actually proud of myself today. We're going to start by talking about the founding of the houses and the sorting hat. Each house is named for a particular extraordinary wizard who founded the school. And each one had a set of characteristics that wizard deemed students of their house should possess. Originally, students were chosen by the wizards directly. Because they understood themselves to be mortal, they enchanted a hat to do so after their deaths. Upon entry to first year, each child entering the school is judged by the sorting hat to determine which house they belong to. Now, if you've read any amount of fantasy, and some sci-fi will fall into this trope as well, you will know this sort of thought experiment happens pretty often. What if an entire species shares personality traits? What if every member of a culture is actually completely homogeneous with no distinct personalities? What if there are only 4 types of people? It's sort of like astrology or the Briggs-Myers test. Now, as a basis for running a school, dividing children into personality types and pitting them against each other is pretty sketchy. Would a lottery be so bad? Sorting them alphabetically? I was going to originally argue that no sane society would undermine themselves like this. But then I remembered what's happening now in the US, and also the Spartans. So I will in fact not be making you that argument after all. But what I want you to take away from this portion is that J.K. Rowling created a fantasy world in which she sorted children into intrinsic personality types. This might not be all that important if the children actually mingled more than they do in the books. But the books explicitly state that the children of each house take classes within their house. They socialize in the common room of their house. These children are kept away from each other. In the first book, the Gryffindors have potions with the Slytherins, and this is called a double, and it seems to be the exception, not the rule. If you had come to Hogwarts and been sorted into a house based on, I don't know, an alphabetical system, it wouldn't have the same sort of creepy undertone that being sorted into a house and kept separate from other children based on your personality traits. So if we are indeed dealing with 4 different houses with 4 distinct type of people, what are we dealing with? How would we describe each house? For days, I thought we were dealing with high school tropes. The popular kids, the outcasts, the tryhards, and the bad apples. These are old and overused tropes, but fine, it's a children's book. But it just wasn't really fitting. Gryffindor was clearly meant to be the popular kids, Ravenclaw were clearly the academic overachievers, Slytherin were the bad apples, but Hufflepuff genuinely confused me. Were they outcasts? They are respected and accepted by the other nice houses. I kept thinking, why would you need a house especially just for shy children? It wasn't like any of these houses seemed to make changes to accommodate the students based on these personality traits. I was just struggling to make my metaphor fit. I was thinking it was very strange that the wiki described both Gryffindor and Hufflepuff as loyal and dedicated. That only left chivalrous and humble as the 2 outstanding descriptors. And those 2 words just kept making my brain itch. I went back to the book to read the chapter on Harry's sorting experience, and the hat gives us a nice little poem. It said that Hufflepuff were just, loyal, and unafraid to toil. Those are her words, not my interpretation. It was the happy to toil part that hit me. Note that this got changed in the wiki to hardworking. That is a less charged phrasing. I understand that when writing poetry, concessions are made for rhyme. But guys, are Hufflepuff peasants? Are Ravenclaw the intelligentsia? Are Gryffindor the aristocracy? It took me a while to figure out how Slytherin might fit into this. They're just the bad sort of aristocracy. The type that whip their servants and start wars. This woman accidentally sorted children into feudalism. I am joking. She did not intentionally recreate feudalism. I also want to mention at this part that the hat actually whispers into Harry's ear that he could be put into Slytherin, and then Harry could use the help of the Slytherin to achieve greatness. So Harry could have easily moved between the 2 groups of aristocrats. It just depended on whether he was going to be a beneficent overlord or a malicious one. Again, I do not think this is intentional. It's just funny to me that the metaphor of feudalism fits. I'm amusing myself here. What I think actually happened is that she knew she needed these 2 opposing forces, the Gryffindors and the Slytherin. And then it seemed really threadbare to just have 2 houses, because if you just had the good people and you just had the bad people, where is the actual tension? I think the other 2 houses are just padding, to be honest. I think it's just lazy writing, and I think because she spent all of her nice adjectives on Gryffindor, what she wanted those other houses to be was pretty threadbare as well. I think Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw are just there to try to obfuscate the obvious badness of Slytherin. If there are only 2 houses, who is good and who is bad is extremely obvious. But if there's 4 houses, the reader has to spend some amount of time evaluating exactly how fascist each house is. What I think is telling is that she sees children as having qualities that are intrinsic and will not change. The entire point of differentiating adults from children is that they are not the same. Children aren't just adults with less information and smaller bodies. By their very nature, they change. We specifically insult adults who have not changed by calling them childish. So the idea that a person sorted by a hat at 11 years old into a house has an immutable nature and won't change into adulthood is ridiculous. And that is my takeaway from the houses in this series. That JK has a hard time understanding change, especially as regards how a person can change, even just through the inevitable process of aging. I don't know about you, I don't think I'm the same person I was at 11, and I don't know that I would want to be. I take that back. I'm certain I do not want to be. I did mention fascism pretty casually earlier, like I released some sort of bird and just left it. Well, we're going to address it now. Aren't you so glad you got catfished into this? It is clear to me that J.K. Rowling wanted to talk about fascism in her books. She created a literal race essentialist fascist group in the Death Eaters. They are led by a charismatic race essentialist. They believe in a strict hierarchy where they are also the best sort of people and are more deserving by being born to specific people, in this case wizards. For Fantastic Beasts, she puts us in the year 1925, not long after the First World War. This is the year, in reality, that Hitler is released from prison, and also the year that Mein Kampf is released to the public. In this movie, we see the events that lead up to the evil wizard Grindelwald seizing power and beginning the persecution of Muggles. Grindelwald is the role model for Voldemort from the Harry Potter series. J.K. also created the New Salem Philanthropic Society, a clear reference to witch trials. She is clearly trying to talk about fascism and persecution. But I think her understanding of what makes a fascist is flawed. It seems like, in my opinion, she thinks they are born because she sees children as having intrinsic traits. So, let's talk about the fascists in Harry Potter. I see very few people in her books change. We see people able to hide their evil for periods of time. I can think of several examples of people using disguises to hide what side they're on. Grindelwald pretends to be Graves. Barty Crouch Jr. disguises himself as Alistair Moody, but not change from good to evil or the opposite. The only one I can think of is Snape. But we experience that as a description of something that has already taken place. He is disguising his own positions, but he's not assuming someone else's identity to do so. Otherwise, the people readers are introduced to as seeming bad are indeed bad. And as mentioned in a comment by Theoleaf, and I'm so glad that they did, J.K. is very mean in her physical descriptions of people who she does not like. She links physical traits she does not like with inherent aspects of that person's personality she also thinks are bad. And this gives me thoughts of eugenics and phrenology. The belief that people who are deemed physically ugly are also evil. Do I need to say that this is incorrect and also very bad? I hope not. The most obvious real-world parallel J.K. is referencing is the fascism of Nazi Germany. I say that because Grindelwald is, as far as I can tell, a fake German name. Swamp Forest is a fascinating choice if my Google Translate is accurate, but we have enough information about Weimar Germany to know that certain Germans were not just born fascists. So let's look at what was happening as World War I was winding down, and it was clear to the German leadership that they were losing. The German troops were told that they lost because an enemy at home that was socialist and Jewish had worked to undermine the German war effort from within. Sound familiar? The truth was that the German population was starving to death because of a naval blockade and had begun to rebel against the kings. There are multiple smaller kings involved here, and the main king, Kaiser Wilhelm II. The number of people that starved is estimated to be 760,000. That is a lot of people, 750,000 people. That is a society-altering number of people, even if those were the only casualties of the war. And they were not. I think it was pretty easy to understand why the German populace was angry. And the German kings and aristocracy, as well as the German military leaders, were responsible for the war. But they couldn't own the responsibility of a loss, so they scapegoated their own populace. Soldiers returned from the war having been traumatized by violence, their own or others, but also having been convinced that they'd been betrayed. Some Germans remained loyal to the Kaisers and military leadership who did not like the communists and socialists. But don't forget that the soldiers also could not own any of that failure in the war. Again, it was easier for all of these groups to blame the citizens of Germany than themselves. And this is the very condensed version of the November Revolution before Kaiser Wilhelm fled the country and the leadership of Germany was turned over to a center-left party that was left holding the bag of violence, starvation, and wartime reparations to other countries, which further destabilized Germany. The center-left party tried to root out anyone farther left than themselves, and none of these groups was beyond violence. Not long after the revolution, right-wing reactionaries started violent conflicts in the streets, creating even more death and chaos. Those right-wing reactionaries would later be rewarded for their actions and absorbed into the SA, i.e. the brown shirts. In light of all this, implying certain people are just born fascists seems pretty simplistic and underdeveloped. I am not saying a series of books for children should give them an exact history of the rise of fascism in Germany, but again, she clearly wants to talk about it in a children's book. I think just implying you were born bad and those bad people will always be physically unattractive is a terrible idea, which is why treating personality traits as permanent and also sorting children by personality is also a terrible idea. Now, did I do all this so that I could talk to you about fascism? Yup. When the topic of a video on Harry Potter house colors came up a few months ago, I instantly knew this wouldn't really be about Harry Potter so much. I think several parts of the world are in trouble right now, and I have no idea how long you will be allowed to see any anti-fascist information. So I decided now was the time. You may think this is an overreaction. I do not think so. Never would I be so happy as to be wrong about this. And hopefully you will see this as a worthy reason to engage with the art. I did say something intentionally quite snotty at the beginning of my other video, because I knew this one was not going to be complimentary. You didn't know that, so it was a bit unfair, but I did. And this is exactly what I meant by engaging. Not just nodding along, but trying to understand something anew. Also, I will not always do this to you. For the most part, my nail videos will just be nail videos. But this one did need to be different. And maybe now is the time to throw this in. I took the online test. I am not a Slytherin, whatever that even means after everything I just said. I guess it's good I wasn't born a fascist, I guess. I'm only going to make another Harry Potter video when I actually have something to say about it. Right now what I have is a cluster of random thoughts floating through my head. I did want to talk more about taboo and disgust. I wanted to talk about being an ally to a fascist movement now, because you cannot comprehend you may soon be their victim. I wanted to talk about sumptuary law, moral panics, but I don't really have anything concrete right now. Oh God, I almost said concepts of a plan. Even I'm disgusted by myself now. So part 2 of, surprise, serious topic is not currently scheduled. I will try to give you warning either through a post or by a very obvious video title, so that those hoping to avoid these videos will easily be able to do so. So how did we do? How does everybody feel about that? I do feel like I skipped around a little bit. I hope my link between her essentialist thinking about how people develop personality and the essentialism of race science, hopefully that took. At any rate, that is the end of this video. I will do my best to find an extremely cute clip to put at the end because I am concerned we are all taking psychic damage now. Bye. She links physical traits that she thinks are bad with inherent aspects of that person's person. Holy shit. Apparently I should have tried to say this out loud before. I actually tried to record it and I realized I need to rework that sentence.